Hey, what's up, everyone? Today is a very special week on One and a Half Mexicans. We have our guest, Marcel. You want to say hi, Marcel?
Hello, everyone.
All right, he's gonna be our guest for today's episode. So, Cyrus, you want to take over for me, real quick?
So, on this episode of One and a Half Mexicans, we have a somewhat serious topic. Um, just this weekend, this man in Nebraska, he shot up a Sonic's restaurant, killing two of the employees and injuring two others, and supposedly setting a van on fire. But authorities aren't sure if that was his doing. Anyway, what's weird about this situation is that this man, prior to this deadly shooting, um, this man he ended up ordering a lot of food off of the Sonics app, off of a Sonics app account, which wasn't his. So he got arrested for impersonation and identity theft charges. But when he was arrested, the police found three guns in his car. Now, fast forwarding to this shooting, when he was arrested, he was found with four additional guns in his car. Since the police kept those three guns, that he had, he from the incident before. But since he was able to post a partial amount of his bond, he was released. But it's just so strange to me, like why do you have so many guns? What's the reason for having so many? And like what led him to do this? And I'm not sure what the reason is, but looking at his looking at his mugshot, he's all smiling and happy, like he has no remorse for what he did. Like he's actually he's happy that he did it. And it just makes me think like this guy has some type of mental health problem. But it also makes me think like why would somebody that has a mental health problem like that ever have access to guns? I don't know. What do you all think?
Surprised he didn't do that to an Arby's. No, but all jokes aside, I think this whole situation represents uh like the insidious side of Mitch McConnell. Uh, it's been years since because mentally deranged people could. You don't need background checks to buy guns, dude.
Depends on the state, but depends on the state. But I mean, well, in a lot of states, for example, Illinois, you
But
do
not
need a
in
background
Nebraska.
check to get a FOID, right? But the problem is, right, exactly. Nebraska is different because there are states like there's a big misconception in about Chicago that the gun violence doesn't that the gun control laws in the state don't work because people still get guns, but that have way more lax laws. So what people tend to do, I'm not saying it's ever, but it does happen, is that people drive across the border into say Indiana, where the gun laws are way more lax, and you don't need as many qualifications to buy. They buy whatever guns from there. They come over here back to Illinois, and there aren't like checks at the border or anything. So you can just kind of come in. Like say you want to buy an AR, you can't do that in Illinois, but you can drive across the border, get one from Indiana, and then come over here. And so like the only way that you'll get legally reprimanded is if the cops find it. Um, so yeah, so like it's messy when it comes to how background checks work in the U.S. I have a complicated relationship with it personally, but it's yeah. So like the people like um, the Nebraska shooter, or like a lot of people who, in my opinion, really aren't fit to be owning any weapons at all. They tend to be able to just collect.
Dude, guns outnumber people in the
Mm-hmm.
U.S., which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
crazy.
And especially if you look at
Hey, Marcel, what are your opinions on gun control?
it's complicated. I'm honestly not a big fan of the gun control debate, but not for reasons that a lot of people would think. I have a really complicated relationship with guns and violence in general. Um, I do plan to buy a gun once I get my own home. I actually plan to buy several. And but like the thing is, like I see the necessity, right? Because we live in a country with a lot of people. So because there are a lot of people there, like violence is just an inevitability. Also, the way that we handle mental health, the way that we handle, bigotry in this country is completely whack. So, you know, like just a couple weeks ago, one of my very dear friends, who I don't want to name, actually had witnessed a gathering of white nationalists. Um, so, and like, I'm a brown person. I'm very visibly a person of color. And I'm very aggressive about my politics when it comes to, the way I present myself in the world. So I see the necessity for, wanting to protect yourself or wanting to protect people that you care about. But, um, there are people that I think should never be allowed to touch a gun or a knife outside of the kitchen, et cetera, et cetera. But, in an ideal world, I would like to make sure that those people don't have access to such weapons. But we don't live in a world where that's possible right now. And at this time, do I trust the government to control that? No, not at all. That's not to say that literally everyone should own a gun, but uh, it's complicated, and I'm really not a fan of the fact that the mainstream part of the gun control debate is so black and white. Because you've got middle class liberals saying that we should get rid of all guns, and then you've got disparaged working class people saying we need guns to protect ourselves from, let's say, cops or white nationalists or the National Guard whenever they come through and try to disrupt a protest, etc. But then you've got the Republicans who say that we should all be able to own whatever guns we want because a 250-year-old piece of paper said that we should. Um, it's complicated. But I, something that I saw on the internet. There's like a forum that pretty much sums it up for me. It was called "Gun People Who Hate Gun People," and that more or less, I guess, if you wanted a quick summation, I guess that sums up how I feel about guns in general.
It's either you're into guns or you're not into guns. No in
Yeah,
between.
and especially if you look at the way that gun culture exists in the U.S., it's extremely toxic. It almost relishes in the hypothetical of being in a violent situation. Because in America, owning a gun is a power fantasy. Um, Again, it's a blanket statement. It doesn't apply to everyone, but from what I see, that generally tends to be the case. There's a big emphasis on essentially being, you know, white dudes with beards who want to be Joel from The Last of Us, you know. Um, but for example, I'm a person who wants to buy a gun, but I'm just like, I don't think I need that many. As much as I would like to have my own AR-15, I can't have one in the state, and I'm relatively cool with that. I don't think I need one. I could get a small pistol for concealed carry, a larger pistol for home defense, and then just in case, I'll have a shotgun under my bed. I don't need this entire rack in my basement of a full arsenal. I'm not trying to bust into a police station and kill Sarah Connor, right? I'm just trying to protect myself and my own. So I don't. It's asinine to me the way that gun culture works here. Um, I hate the concept of open carry. Um, I get. I think I get the appeal of it. I don't want to assume anyone else's train of thought, but I think I get the necessity of like it. It works as a deterrent. People are less likely to mess with you if you've got your AK slung over your back or you've got a Glock strapped to your thigh. But as a person who lives in a city like Chicago, where you know gun violence is a big stigma that exists here, and I also have an anxiety disorder, and my romantic partner has um, schizophrenia, but also another anxiety disorder as well. I don't. Um, I don't think that it's safe generally. It inspires a lot of fear, and that's my biggest problem with it. I'm a big proponent. I'm a big supporter of concealed carry, because people tend to not stare if, like, say I've got, let's say I have one of the guns I plan to buy is an H&K P30 SK. Let's say that I have that just like slung like under my belt, and like tucked under my shirt and my jacket. No one sees it. Um, it's there if I need it, but like it doesn't catch anyone's attention unless I call attention to it. Um, yeah, I don't want to scare my neighbors. I don't want to scare people on the bus. I don't want to, I don't want to raise alarm. And if I am in a defensive situation, I would rather not that be the object of my potential attacker's attention. You know.
Hey Marcel, I heard you take martial arts. What do you think is more powerful, disarming someone through martial arts or shooting, blasting some bullets into
Um,
someone?
honestly, if I had to choose, if someone pulled a gun on me and I had to choose one of three ways to defend myself, which would be either hand to hand, what was referred to as a cold weapon, which means a knife, a baton, a billy club, whatever, or a gun, I would pick a gun. Um, because I mean, there are merits to everything when it comes to self defense. For hand to hand, there's less likelihood that you'll kill your attacker. You get to be up close. I mean, but like you get to be up close, so um, you know, if you are what's referred to as in the pocket, it's there's a less likelihood that you'll get shot. But if there's distance, that likelihood of you getting shot increases. And if someone has a gun to you, then the percentage is high to begin with. Um, I I mean, it's complicated. I mean, because like with a gun, you're more likely to put down your attacker faster. But then again, it's very likely that you'll kill someone, and the laws around wrongful death are very tricky. You might get to live to keep your wallet, but you killed someone. It's tough. I was actually in a defensive situation where someone it wasn't a real gun, but someone tried to make me think that they were pulling a gun on me, and I responded by stabbing them in the shoulder with a knife. And as effective as it was honestly very stupid of me, because if it was a real gun, I probably would have gotten shot, um, even if it was a non-lethal, like a non-lethal wound. I still would have gotten hit, just because of where he was in relation to me. Um, and even though it was a little poke, what I did to him, um, it traumatized me. It's not very fun. There's a little monologue in The Dark Knight where the Joker says that he kills people with knives because guns are too quick and like knives are more intimate and you can feel the other person. And that is, as cringe as it is to reference the Joker, it is very true. You do feel, you know, the metal piercing flesh, and it's not a fun experience unless you're an actual sociopath. But but yeah, to answer your question, if I had to choose between hand to hand combat and a gun, if they had a gun on me, I would pick a gun. If they didn't, if they were unarmed, I would just use my hands. Um,
All right, everybody. We had some technical difficulties, but now we're back on the regular schedule program. Back to you, Daniel.
Teachers with guns. I don't know how I feel about that. We have a classroom full of depressed kids. That doesn't really make a recipe for success. And I don't think it really deters or even is a deterrent for school shooters in general. What do you think, Cyrus?
yeah,
Oh, or Marcel?
yeah. I mean, it's not only the abnormally high rates of mental illness in American schools. It it's also the fact that a lot of I mean, there's a big problem with giving just teachers guns without any training, without any, I mean, whether it's safety training or like combat training, there's a big problem with just giving someone a weapon and expecting them to know what to do when the time comes or how to use the thing. Because even if you are the kind of person who wants to use a gun or knows your way around guns, there's a mutual understanding within any gun owning community that these are not just tools, they are weapons. They are designed for nothing else but to kill things. Um, so like you have to drill it into your head to take it seriously. There's a reason why people always treat their guns as if they're loaded, no matter how many times they have checked the chamber. Because one little mistake and someone could end up in the hospital or dead. So to have that in a building full of dozens or maybe even hundreds of people, to have like a dozen or so guns in there with people in the hands of people who don't know how to treat them with respect, that's a very big problem because either someone could lose their cool and then impulsively kill someone. Someone could not know how to use the weapon, whether it's in a dangerous situation or it's just they fumble with it and they end up shooting themselves in the head. You know, it happens all the time. Like a lot, there's a big misconception in America that the biggest causes of gun-related deaths are from gang activity or from mass shootings, but in reality, a big part of it is suicides, whether it's like actual attempted suicides or like their accidents. Um, that's a big problem that America doesn't really like to talk about, and just giving them to teachers is a very dumb idea. Also, expecting a teacher to be able to take a life, just on not like just at any given point in time, it's a very dumb idea. Whether it's in the short run or the long run, there's just way too many variables, and it's just such a messy and stupid idea.
I mean, it's already like extremely frowned upon to have guns near children, you know? So why would you have
Yeah.
a gun near 32 children, you know?
Mhm.
You're pretty
That's the
much
primary reason why. Like I have the money to buy a gun right now, and I have my Floyd. I could literally just drive over to say, I could drive over to the suburbs and like stop by a gun store and then buy a pistol. I could do that right now, but the main reason why I don't is because I share the room with my bedroom with a teenager. So you know, just for my brother's safety, I don't want to have that thing in the home. You know, like having guns and having children in the same household, unless you lock those things up perfectly, there's way too many variables to consider, and it's very dangerous.
but there's no point of locking it up, you know? Oh, wait, there's no point of really locking it up. Like an intruder could break into your house middle of the night. Are you really gonna take what 2 to 3 minutes just running to your safe and getting that, you know? Because by the time
Mm-hmm.
like those 2 to 3 minutes are extremely important in getting rid of that intruder, and because you just
Mm-hmm.
wasted those minutes, you know, scrambling and trying to get that gun, you could already
Yep.
either your family members or you could have been popped to death. It's like,
Yeah, but
yeah.
it. While I do get that argument, I personally have a problem with it because it doesn't consider a wealth of variables. First of all, that home intrusion, it's not as common as Americans like to say it is. Um, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but like usually if someone wants to break into your house, it's to steal something, and the likelihood of them being armed with another gun is depending on where you live, it might be a lot lower. But there's also the fact that where was it? There are also gun lockers and gun safes specifically designed for quick access. So it's a sort of a compromise between having your guns locked away, but also having them easy to pull out. Like I forgot the brand of it, but there is like it's like a little gun safe designed just for a small pistol, and you just press. There are like 5 buttons on it. You press them in a specific order that you code in, and then it just unlocks and within seconds. So just keep that thing in your nightstand, and then kaboom, you have your gun ready. But um, yeah, well, I do get that argument of you want it easy to access, which is why, again, I don't want to even buy a gun until I get my own home where I live alone and I can have it just loose in my nightstand without the risk of, my brother getting curious or, anything like that. It's one of those things where like it's complicated and it's not so black and white as much as I wish it was. Um, but yeah.
But what about families that need to protect, they have to protect their family and their kids. They're gonna have to get, especially, people that are growing up in bad neighborhoods, they're gonna have to get a gun to protect themselves. So it's like, do I just not get a gun and risk my family either, getting robbed or at the very worst dying? Or
Mm,
do I get a gun and and have the issue that a family member, probably a little kid, might discover it and end up doing something with it?
mhm.
It's like a double-edged sword. Like, what am I supposed to do? Because
Yeah.
whichever option I choose, there's always gonna be a potential for a bad outcome.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's tricky. I wish it was simpler, but it isn't because the world doesn't work that way. If being an oldest sibling and having several cousins that are like the oldest one is, I think he's, how old is he? I think he's like 12 now. But like in that case, like it's if that's taught me anything, it's that kids are stupid. No matter how, like I say that with love, but like no matter how you try to discipline your children or your siblings about, hey, these things are dangerous, don't play with them. There is always going to be that childhood curiosity that exists in them, and it's different for every family. But if it were me, I would if and I did live in a home with children, I would prefer to have my guns locked up. That's just me though. It's different for everyone. It depends on what your kids are like, how much you trust your kids, what risks are you willing to take, for that emergency scenario. There is no perfect way to house your guns in the scenario where you do have a family. Um, it's a very complicated question. Um, you know, what what is the best scenario? But it depends on you, what you want to do, what risks you are willing to take. For me, because I trust myself in a hand-to-hand scenario, and I do have other weapons other than I do own weapons other than guns, and when I move out, I plan to take them with me. But I have other weapons that I can access if I don't have time to open the safe or open the locker. Um, you know, I keep a bolo knife tucked underneath my mattress in a way that like I can access it. Um, if someone is in my room and I don't have the time to reach any other weapon, I can very easily pull that bolo knife out and then use that until I can get to the other weapons. That's the way I do it. It's different for everyone, like I said, but that's me.
Yeah, because I feel like for you, just having a weapon, does it make you feel a bit more secure and safe?
Yeah, yeah. I'm a very paranoid person, so that's just the way my brain works. So having this weapon underneath my mattress, I also have a bow hanging in my closet, and a quiver of 14 arrows. Um, so like, and I also have a battle axe in my closet. So like, if I need those, they're there when I need them. Some of them are more conveniently placed than others, but I do have them, and they do honestly help me sleep better at night.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I will feel less safe with them just because I'm the one that's paranoid, not about getting robbed or anything, but I'm paranoid about, something bad happening because
Mhm.
that weapon is in the house.
Yeah, yeah, and that's absolutely valid. One of there's a certain someone in my close friend circle who as much as they do want to learn self-defense and weapon discipline from me, they don't trust themselves with owning a gun because they are schizophrenic and they do not trust themselves mentally knowing that they have a weapon like a gun in their home. And that's them. It's different for everyone the way that how safe you are with certain weapons or certain tools in your home. It's very different depending on the person. And I really wish that that is acknowledged in the gun community, but it really, really isn't.
Yeah. And that being said, how would you recommend somebody that's schizophrenic or somebody else that has some mental health condition where they're not fit to have a gun? How would you recommend them to protect themselves?
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you want to defend yourself, but you don't trust yourself with a gun, try to figure out what weapon you do trust yourself with, even if it's something simple like pepper spray. Um, you know, like there's a forum that I'm in called the Rifle Social, which is it's a gun group, but it's specifically for left wing people, because a lot of gun groups tend to be very right wing, and that's not my jam. But there was a person who basically said that they want to own a gun, but they, just like my friend, they have schizophrenia and they do not trust themselves with a loaded gun in their bedroom. So people were saying all kinds of things like, uh, find an alternative weapon, whether it's a baseball bat, even something crazy like a sword. If you trust yourself with it more than a gun, use it by all means. If you know how to use it or you can figure out how to use it, then go nuts. Um, or if you are insistent on getting a gun, then keep your ammunition and the weapon itself separate. If you live with a partner who you do trust with these things, give them access to the ammunition and, let's say, give yourself access to the gun. There are many different things that you can do. It all depends on your home situation and the way that your personal mental faculties work. It's very different depending on the person, but it's one of those things where you know yourself best, so you got to figure it out for yourself within reason. Um, if you can figure it out, go for it. If you need help with that, ask for help. But you gotta, if your priority is self defense, then you gotta navigate. It's like leveling up in an RPG. Um, you have certain things that you want to prioritize, certain things that you don't. But it's all depending on your playstyle, how you want to do things. Um, I don't like preaching that there's one perfect way to do things because again, the world does not work like that. I wish it did, but it doesn't. Um, yeah.
And I guns are really confusing for me
Mm-hmm.
because, like you said, you support them, but at the same time you're against them at the same time. So you always have conflicting views on them, and this is like the gray area, and this has always been my gray area. It's like I could have an opinion like, oh, uh, people who are mentally capable and people who are physically capable of using and owning a weapon, should 100% own one, like for their safety and for whoever else they're with safety, But it's also like we said in the beginning, if you have someone like, this arsonist or and these right wing like terrorist groups, and yes, I said terrorists because they are terrorists. um they they shouldn't even be close to a weapon. They shouldn't even have hands on their weapons,
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is where I get into the territory of like guns is not for everyone, but guns should be used, because like I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very messy thing. Like, and going back to what I said in the beginning, I really hate that the gun conversation, in the mainstream at least, is either yes or no. there's no nuance to it, and it's everyone just pointing fingers at each other without looking at the numbers, without looking at the evidence, without understanding that, you know, the world we live in and the species that we are, both are very complicated things. We can't just put these issues into black and white. Um, there there are way too many variables to consider, and just having it as should we or should we not have guns is very reductive, and it makes my brain itch.
It's
You know,
just the way to divide us. That's all
because
that it is. It's pretty much the media pushing a
it makes good
narrative to get.
news.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's
It
the
makes
media
good
pushing a
news.
narrative to get more views because it rounds up both of the sides. Even though that both of the sides, they probably reasonably think like if they took a step back and thought for themselves, they're like, yeah, I want my guns, but I don't think everybody should have them because if somebody with this condition has the gun, I'm not gonna feel safe. And the other side probably thinks that too, probably to a more or lesser degree, but they're not to the extremes where they say yes, everybody should have guns, and no, nobody should have guns.
Mm, yeah,
I mean, the same.
it
Oh,
it
you go.
it like it makes, you know, like say Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, it makes them all, it puts money in their pockets, but it also puts money, it gives money to gun companies and lobbyists, because whenever gun control comes up, whenever another mass shooting happens and then the argument starts up again, you look at the stocks for say Sig Sauer or Heckler and Koch or Beretta, Colt, all these different, or especially the NRA, like there more money gets shoved into their pockets because people start panic buying, and it's a very, I hate to admit it, but it's a very good political and economic strategy. Because when right wingers, or let's say the communists, get riled up because gun control is on the mind again, or say BLM is on the rise again, so people, no matter what their opinions are, if they want to get guns, they find a reason to start stockpiling on ammo. That's why there's a shortage right now. Um, the one of the guns that I was planning on buying, it takes 380 ACP ammunition, and that is extremely rare nowadays, because people are just buying these different popular calibers because they worry that oh my god, looters are gonna come to their towns, or um, some people with a bit more logic to their heads are worried about white supremacists in their neighborhood, um, et cetera, et cetera. It Yeah, it's a money thing. It's an agenda thing. I don't like putting it in terms of sides, because that's very black and white reductive, in my opinion. There are many different angles to look at the gun problem or the gun issue in America, and it's probably just because of the way that we work as people. But I get the need to have it be black and white, but it's very different than that, you know.
I
I
was
mean,
talking
this.
to you could go, Daniel.
No, I was just gonna say that the same conversation takes place during abortion. It's
Hmm.
usually used to divide us. Like if if you don't have politicians or the media talking about it, like hardly anyone gives a crap about it. You know, but you have the pro-choicers, the people who don't care, and then you have the pro or it. They're technically pro-birthers. They usually don't care about love the fetus, hate the child.
Yep,
Like that
yep,
kind
Yeah,
of mentality.
that's
because
exactly what it is.
because orphans, they seem to have a really tough life. Now
Hmm.
maybe that's just like, I don't know, propaganda that I'm saying, but I'm pretty sure orphans as a whole, their life isn't that good.
Oh
I
yeah, the
mean,
foster
sure,
care
I
system
guess
is
it's
absolute
better than,
garbage.
yeah, because I'm like, sure, I guess you get to live a life, but like for some of them, they don't want to live that life. Some of them probably are like, they would have rather been aborted than being put into an orphanage or foster home.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of government money doesn't go into orphanage or like the whole adoption process, you know? And why do you
Mhm.
think so many kids up till 18, from when they're born up to 18, are still in the adoption cycle, you know, in the system? Because
Really?
hardly anyone cares about them, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
I have the same issue too. I don't really think about it until someone, either I think about it or somebody brings it up, you know? And it's one of those issues that we never think twice about, you know? We always glance at it and then move the other way.
Yeah, because it doesn't affect us, especially if we aren't or haven't, if we aren't, haven't been, or don't know any orphan. Because I know in my life, I I don't believe I know any, and if I did, I wasn't really that aware of it. Because that's basically a human mentality. If there's an issue that comes up and it doesn't really affect you, you're not really going to care about it that much. It's only when stuff impacts you that's when you start putting at least the slightest bit of effort into it.
Yeah. That is more or less how it works. Um,
And the same thing could be said about, you know, the gun debate. It usually isn't fired up until some sort of events happen, you know?
mhm.
Like when the Las Vegas shooting happened, you have the right wingers say, "Oh, it's too early for the gun conversation," and go protect yourself. Buy, keep buying guns, and then you have the
And
left
then
wing
some
media
people
telling
were
you
saying that
to.
was fake too. Like, what? There's multiple videos showing it.
There's a literal video of them showing you like the shooter shooting out the window
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
hotel.
and then you have like, yeah, you have those Alex Jones types where they like to accuse victim like survivors of various mass
Sandy Hook.
shootings that like that, yeah, exactly, that they're lying and that they're what's the term for it, for,
Scapegoating.
not scapegoating, but like they basically assume that like the survivors or the people that were there are
Were
actors,
actors.
yeah, we're actors, and that it's all a hoax, to like, I don't know, promote a gun control agenda. When like if you look at the way that gun sales and ammunition sales skyrocket after these things, it's the exact opposite. It I it really, it makes me want to blow my brains out just to say
Wait,
this, but like, hmm?
you said that gun sales rise after these events?
Yeah, because people panic buy. It's the same thing with what happened when the George Floyd protests happened. People were scaremongering about riots and looting. So then, now there is an ammunition shortage. It wasn't that bad before, but that does tend to happen. It's good press for, let's say, for organizations like the NRA. It's good press for gun companies, because when right wingers think that the Democrats are coming for their guns, uh, or that the communists are coming for their guns, even though the communists want guns just as much as they do, um, the whenever that scaremongering happens, they start buying more guns. Um, and I hate saying this, but like, gun violence is good business. It's a disgusting thing that's
Yeah,
true,
that
but
makes sense.
that's exactly how it works. Every
Yeah.
time someone gets shot and it goes up on the news, people want to buy more guns because they're scared of what the political reaction to that would be.
It's like how the stock prices of well, I guess it's kind of obvious, but you know how stock prices of the companies that supply weapons to the US military go up when like there's more war involvement and
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
It's like the stock market, it doesn't care about humanity. All that matters is whatever makes the prices go up.
Yeah, that's essentially the whole point. That's why you have a surge in philosophies that are based on socialism, communism, Marxism, left-wing anarchism, those are coming back because there is a sort of a collective realization that, like, oh, the economy doesn't care about us. So that it's a response to that. Um, yeah.
Hey, Marcel, quick question before we go. What are your thoughts on capitalism in general? Not just in the gun debate, but in general.
To put it simply, I don't like it as a working class person, as a person who hails from a country where authoritarian capitalism is tearing my people apart. Um, it, it's done nothing but give me misery. Like I get the point behind it, but I want to put this as a disclaimer, right? There I think that there is a big parallel. Well, I mean, it's like with any issue here in the U.S. Um, there's a big lack of understanding about socialism versus capitalism versus communism versus anarchism. There's a big misunderstanding about what these terms mean amongst the American populace, and that just leads to more propaganda because less educated people are easier to sway. Um, so I do not like the capitalist system, but and I guess for lack of a better term, I would consider myself an anarcho-communist. But the thing is, there are a lot of misconceptions with that come with those words, you know, um, and a lot of those misconceptions are sort of straight up not true. Um, so, like, there are failures in socialism and capitalism alike, but in my personal opinion, the way that I view the world based on the way that my life has happened, and continues to go, I think that the capitalist system is way too flawed to sustain the way that it does now. If we could adjust it enough so that it's not as predatory as it exists, sure, whatever. But as it stands, I think that it needs to. I'd prefer to abolish it. Um,
But um, even if a country is like a country, like countries throughout history, it's not just modern times. A lot of them fail if they just implement one type of political or not political, just an ideology,
mhm.
socioeconomic
Yeah,
ideology.
you're not wrong.
S- So, do you think the way America should like create this harmonious society with like socialism, capital, or like what kind of mix do you is your ideal
I don't think it
country?
should be a mix because a lot of these ideas naturally contradict each other, right? So capitalism, the way that I understand it is um, the continuous act um, of the exchange of capital and the accruing of capital. Um, Socialism is, to make it easy, to make it user friendly, is um, it's when the workers own the means of production rather than a boss. Communism is when you abolish the capitalist system and you I mean, that's really it. What goes from there is, it's a whole new can of worms. But again, it's a cultural thing to see how what systems can work where. Um, I wouldn't, as far as I can tell, there aren't really any legitimate communist nations that exist today. Um, but I don't know. I don't think that they can mix. I really don't. Just because there is a natural need to alienate people based on whether or not their ideology opposes yours. Um, right. So a really good example of this that I'm relatively familiar with is when when the Soviet Union was like up and coming and Lenin was still in charge. In Ukraine, they had their own revolution that was based on anarchism. If you look up the Free Territory, the Black Army, or Makhno, that's what that is. That's what that was. They were essentially a large commune spanning like 2/3 of Ukraine, and they had hospitals, they had factories, they had power plants, they had the works, and it was working fine. But that started to inspire unions in the USSR. So Lenin's response was to basically slaughter Ukrainian anarchists, um, even though technically speaking they were both communist territories. So it's just like it has to be one or the other. Um, but the thing is, the way that certain ideologies and political systems are run, they are just naturally designed to eat themselves. Um, I don't want to say that I'm an expert on these things because I'm not. I'm just basing it on what how I experience life and the way that my experiences have been tailored based on what I witness and what people that I know and love need and what I know and need, what I want and need in life. Um, I don't know. I mean, like I don't think that there is any one system that works for humanity as a whole. I have what I want, but what I want doesn't work for everyone. It's you know, it's complicated.
Right. I mean, and you can't really answer it through one conversation. It'll take a lot of conversations and in-depth thinking to really know what you want and how it could suit other people.
Hmm. Yeah, and like I would, I don't know. It again, it's one of those things. I'm gonna just keep parroting this because it's true. But as much as I wish that the world was so simple and easy to figure out, it's not. There isn't any one thing that works universally. Just because we are a planet of 7.8 billion people, it's 7 billion and change. But there is no way to make sure that one particular thing works for literally everyone. That's impossible. Just the raw numbers, that's not how it works. Um, and I wish it was different, but it's not. That's the way our world works.
All right. Thank you so much, Marcel.
Mhm.
Um, uh, I hope everyone had a good time listening. I hope everyone was invested. And I want to thank you to the 25 followers and our 100 viewers from both our first and second video. We'd like to have you on later,
Of
Marcel.
course.
Thanks for the
Yeah. Thank
yeah.
you for having me.
Thank you all. Thank you, Marcel. And we will see you all next week.